I've tried doing the opening to this thing about 5 times, and I've had to finally come to the realization there is no way to make our discussion of Lady Bird sound interesting.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron.
I'm Michelle.
And this is the start of our annual Oscar Rundown. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what the Oscar Rundown is, every single year, right before the Oscars, we do a little collection of post-geek out reactions all dedicated to the films that were nominated for Best Picture that we haven't already talked about.
Yeah.
And typically there aren't that many of them. This year there's 5 that we didn't get to cover. So I'm gonna be cramming this weekend, but it was either this or go and see that new, what the hell is that sad Bruce Willis film that is going to piss off so many people called?
What is it, like Death Wish?
You know what, I'm glad that I've already forgotten it. Anywho.
No one needs to know about that.
Yeah, Jesus.
Oh, jeez, talk about bad timing.
So, anywho. Let's never talk about that film again. Yes, what we're going to be doing this weekend, we're doing post-geek out reaction for the 5 Oscar films that we haven't already talked about. Hey, Peach, you want to get in on this? And we are kicking things off with Lady Bird. Now, Lady Bird, it is the coming-of-age story of this young girl who calls herself Lady Bird. That's not her official name, but she decided to give herself a brand new name, which is the thing that a lot of teenagers do. They'll either, like, decide to rename themselves, or they'll start referring to their parents by their first name.
Yeah, like the whole rebellion thing.
It's not even rebellion, it's more of, like, a need for, like, individuality, need to, like, be of equality. So yeah, you know, it's a very common thing, but she's kind of an artsy kid. She's going to a Catholic high school and she does not want to live in Sacramento. Her parents are like, oh, but there's so many good colleges around here. But no, she wants to go to a liberal East Coast school. And basically this is just a big coming of age story. And the best thing that I can say about this film is it nails that.
Yes.
This is absolutely a coming of age story, and it's weird. Most coming of age stories, you know, they're supposed to be told from the point of view of the person who wrote it. It's basically their story, and in this case, it is basically her story. But this is the first time that I have ever seen one of these coming of age stories told from the exact time period that I was coming of age.
Yeah, like this takes place around like 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
So like, you know, we were in high school around that time.
I was literally her age, and like, I graduated in 2003. So yeah, I understood what she was going through exactly. Like, I was like, holy shit, this is the first
like,
time.
I'm only 2 years behind you, but like, I was also in high school at the time, so like, I understood what she was going through also, but.
Yeah, it was so weird to see, like, all the stuff that
like,
was being discussed.
The only big difference is, like, we didn't go to Catholic school, and she did, but other than that...
But that doesn't even really come into play all that much.
No, not really.
Not really, yeah. So, basically, this is a coming-of-age story, and, you know, there's all this, like, family drama going on in there because the mom is getting really emotional over the fact that the daughter is going to leave, and the daughter views that as like the mom trying to control her and wanting to escape from all that, and there's some trouble going on with the dad because the dad is losing his job at work, and that of course makes them have to like start counting how much money they have left. They're having to go into their savings on this, but she wants to go to one of the big expensive colleges out there, which puts even more stress on them. And man, I was watching this and so many things in here, I was just like, yeah, this is the checklist of the stuff that I have gone through. Like, I can relate to this film so much because the stuff that that Lady Bird is going through with the mother, it was exactly what my sister and my mom went through. Like, I had a front row seat for that when I was growing up. Like, everything that happened to them was happening in here. Only difference is that my family, it didn't end quite as well, but that's my own family stuff.
We don't need to talk about that.
We don't need to go into all that. But yeah, I was watching this like, holy shit, they nailed that. That's exactly what that feels like. And all the other little things about growing up, it feels exactly the same. And like, I mean, hey, I grew up in North Carolina, and I had that need to, man, I gotta get out here and get to one of those liberal East Coast colleges. And yeah, I moved to New York, and I mean, that moment when she arrives in New York, she comes out of a train station that we could identify. We knew the spots. I was like, man, I get this, I understand this, I can connect to this film on so many levels. I mean, I can connect to this film so much. When she turned 18 in this film, the first thing she did is she went down to the convenience store and bought cigarettes, a lottery ticket, and a porno mag. I did literally those exact same 3 things on the day I turned 18. That's exactly how I celebrated. I was like, fuck, this is like this is a very weird amalgam of me and my sister, who this character is. And I was watching this like, I have never really seen a coming of age story that really just like captured this feeling this well. I don't give a crap.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing about a lot of these coming of age, like high school movies. It's like, we've been through that and we don't really want to go through that again.
I've mentioned I've mentioned this guy before on this channel, but there is a video game website called Rage Select I absolutely love, and the host of that show is called Jeff. And Jeff constantly, like a running gag with him, is that he hates films starring children. And one day on their podcast, someone finally asked him, "Why do you hate films starring children?" And he went, "Listen, I watch these films like It, or I watch Stranger Things, or I watch all these other things where these kids, they're out on bikes and they're rolling around and they're having a good time riding bikes. I remember what it was like riding a bike. It was fucking boring and it sucked." And like he just went on this massive long rant about, I remember what it was like to be a kid. Being a kid was terrible. I remember what it was like to be a teenager growing up. It was fucking stupid. It was lame. Everything that I did was lame back then. All the things that you try and make me feel nostalgic for were lame back then. Before the internet became a big thing, there was nothing important going on. This was the first time watching a movie that I actually understood what he was talking about. Not to like the extent that he
No, but it's like,
I was just like, man, this is exactly what it was like.
Yeah, but like the thing,
I don't give a crap.
Yeah, the thing is, like, when it's about kids, there's always like a sense of whimsy.
Yeah.
But this is about high school. There really isn't much whimsy in high school.
Yeah,
so.
Here's the thing. I have seen a lot of coming of age stories in which there's a ton of drama and there's like really huge stakes, and I was like, you know, there's like, okay, well, like the parents are like drug addicts or something like that, or like, oh, you have a drug addiction, or someone they know was murdered recently, they have to get over that, you know, some like stuff that it can be realistic, or you know, like, oh, your dad lost a job and now we're losing the house, and now we're like losing everything that I once knew and held onto, and it's all going away, stuff like that. I was watching this like, there's really none of that shit going on in this.
I mean, like, stuff does happen, but like not so extreme.
Nothing and, like, that like doesn't happen to a normal person.
No, exactly. It's like, I think that's the thing, is like a lot of like these coming of age movies, they always like amp up everything. That, you know, like they amp up the whimsy or the drama or whatever. This is just very basic.
Or, I don't even know if it's that they amp it up. It's that there's some, I mean, like whimsy, yeah, you're amping it up. But like the drama, sometimes it's just, well, really interesting things happen. Yeah, there's nothing really like, I'm looking at this like, this is the true story of the person who wrote and directed this film. And I was just looking at this like, what on earth made you think this was an interesting enough story? Which, hey, it's nominated for Best Picture, so clearly it was. But I mean, I'm just watching this like, if someone ever this feels like if I decided to write the story of me growing up, and I think my life was more interesting than this, and I still think that's way too fucking boring for a film. I mean, it's not even that boring, because I mean, there are like some interesting moments in here. Like there's like, I was never bored in this film.
No, but
I loved this film and I did appreciate it. I did. I appreciated like how insanely well it was able to capture that feeling. But I also looked at it as like, why did I need to watch this?
It's like, it captures that feeling, but I do not care about that feeling.
I don't care.
I'm glad I'm not in high school anymore. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, there's no fucking nostalgia for that shit. Like, there's many things that happen to these people in here that I'm like, yeah, I went through the exact same stuff. I don't care. And also, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, not only do I not find it that interesting, but also it's like, yeah, any emotion that you could get out of me is emotions that I myself felt firsthand. You're not gonna be able to reproduce that. But yeah, I was just looking at this like, this is the most average, like,
standard.
Almost standard, yeah. Like if you just had a checklist of like what it's like to grow up, this thing checks off every single one of them, and it does it incredibly well.
It does.
I have to keep coming back to that. Nailed that feeling.
Yes.
They got it down. Why do I want to see that? Why do I care? It's, again, I'm just coming back to this like, I was thinking of, I mean, the big dynamic of this whole film is the relationship between Lady Bird and her mother, which, by the way, is both Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf.
Oh, Peach.
Hey now, buddy, what's going on? Sorry about that. But yeah, so Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf are both nominated for Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress, and they both absolutely deserve the nomination. And Laurie Metcalf, so far from what I've seen, deserves the win. She was fantastic in here. The end of this film, where you see like her go through like 9 emotions at once while she's driving, man, knocked it out of the park. But yeah, man, end of the day, it's like, wow, this is just another coming of age film. And I've seen so many other ones out there that did this far more interestingly. I'm not even going to say better, because as far as just capturing that feeling, this is one of the best ones I've seen. But there's nothing really interesting in here. And while I was watching this, I kept thinking of 2 other films. One was this film called 13, and this entire film is the centerpiece of this whole film, is the relationship between Lady Bird and her mom. And I mean, yeah, it is handled incredibly well, all the going back and forth that happened in there. But there's another film out there called 13 that came out several years ago that was a coming of age film.
Wait, 13 and 13?
It was called 13.
No, I meant like the 2 movies. What were they called?
I'm gonna get to the other one in a second.
Oh, okay.
13, it was about this girl, 13 years old. She has a good relationship with her mom, but she ends up finding a friend who is a bad influence on her, gets her involved in the wrong crowd, gets her to start doing drugs, gets her to start doing all this other horrible stuff. And it's about the mom trying to hold on to her, and the daughter is splitting apart, and it gets huge and so dramatic. And man, it gets really tense and depressing towards the end. And it felt incredibly realistic. But at the same time, it was really interesting to watch because of how dramatic it got. And I kept comparing it to this film, and I was just like, yeah, this is like 13 if nothing interesting happened in it. And the other film I kept thinking of was The Big Sick, which we reviewed earlier this year when we did the Quest for the Best, where we look back at all the films that people called the best of the year from the previous year. Man, The Big Sick, it is another true story. It's not really a coming of age story, but it is a film about someone discovering themselves. Yes. Again, it is based on true events. It is the author of the writer of the script actually telling his own story. In fact, the film even ends, spoiler alert for that one, the film also ends with our protagonist leaving to go to New York while the mom sits in the car. So again, it's like, fuck man, you can't not compare this to The Big Sick. The Big Sick's so much more interesting. And
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's like, I feel like anybody can like write a coming of age story, but it's like, if based on their personal experiences, but it's like, if you're gonna put personal experiences into a movie, like make sure it's something unique or interesting.
It's not everybody's, which again, this is one of the reasons I love you so much. This film has amazing reviews. It's nominated for Best Picture. And like the moment that this was over with, I turned to you to say, so what do you think? Because I was like, I didn't really care for this that much, but hopefully she really dug it. And as I turned to you, you were already facing me and just went, so what do you think? And like, you beat me to it, and turns out it's because you thought the exact same thing.
Yeah. It's
you were also like I hope he liked it.
Like, I was just kind of worried because, like, we had, like, very different opinions on Annihilation, and I was wondering if, like, you were gonna, like, enjoy this, and I was not gonna enjoy it as much.
This film, nothing like Annihilation.
Yes, like, just basically, yeah.
Although, speaking of films that were nominated for Best Picture, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, we had very different opinions on that. But one of us at least loved it. This one, like, at least one of us is like, yeah, this absolutely deserves Best Picture nomination. Man, I don't think either of us would come out and would say, yeah. No. Again, The Big Sick. How the fuck did this beat out The Big Sick? How did this beat out Logan? Like, man, every single year, there is one film that gets nominated for Best Picture that I'm just like, I do not understand it.
It's like, we need like a list of like Oscar tropes. I mean, like movies that have like tropes in them that are like guaranteed to have them Oscar nominated.
I think the Oscars are finally starting to realize, oh shit, I think they're on to us. Because The Shape of Water got nominated this year, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I'd still even say it is not trope heavy for the Oscars. It's very different than what the Oscars typically go for. And Get Out, holy cow. Yeah, I think the Oscars are finally realizing, oh god, we have to nominate different things. But I want the same old World War II story all over again. We'll talk about Darkest Hour tomorrow. But yeah, I might end up loving Darkest Hour. We haven't seen that one yet.
We haven't.
I'm just saying, if you're talking about films that the Oscars have done 1,000 fucking times over. Yeah, man, so far, it sucks that this is the first one that we're doing for our Oscar rundown, but again, I'm not coming in here saying I think that this is bad. This really, to me, is this year's La La Land. Like I know I ranted about La La Land a lot, but end of the day, I'd still give that a B. I'd still give that a solid B.
Like, basically, the only reason why we were like so upset about it is because we did not feel it was worth being nominated.
It's because when you have that many freaking people telling you something is amazing over and over and over again, when you watch it and you think it's just okay, you're gonna look around like, what the I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. What is everyone seeing in this thing? Which, by the way, again, I don't think this is bad. I think it's good.
It's good, but it's just not Oscar worthy.
But yeah, it's a good come out in the fall. You go there with your parents, like right when you're about to leave for college, and then you walk out, you cry a little bit, and you hug each other. That's it. That's fine. It's perfectly fine for that. This is not like what this. The phrase "best picture of the year" won't even come out of my mouth for this, because I'm like, how? I don't. And the thing is, there is nothing anyone can explain to me about this film that will not make me go, yeah, I saw that. Like, there's nothing that anybody will say, well, I enjoyed it because I connected with it. I did too. Yeah. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, like I said, I was able to relate to like 9 out of the 10, like for every 10 things that happened in this film, I related to 9 of them. And I was just like,
I may not have related to the character as much as you did, but there were definitely like certain scenarios that she was in that I was definitely like, oh yeah, been there, done that. So it's like,
yeah, that was one of the reasons why I'm so glad I watched it with you, because I've heard like that female audience members really appreciated this because they were able to connect to it on like a deeper level. So as soon as this was done, I was like, I related to so many things, but I guess I just didn't get that connection. And then you're over here like, ah, fuck this thing.
Yeah,
well, not like,
I mean, no, not like, but it's like, yeah, I can relate to her, but it's like, I didn't care.
At what point does Lady Bird find the creepy clown that lives in the sewer or something? Like, yeah, if you want to talk about like film, like that was one thing that we were talking about. It's like, yeah, there's so many films out there that we connect to and we relate to and we can understand the characters, but then they do something more interesting. This one is like, yeah, it's like, okay, she went to school.
Yeah.
All right, she's in the play.
Yeah, she in the play. She had a crush. Turned out he wasn't all that she wanted. She tried to be one of the...
We can go ahead and spoil that one.
Yeah.
It's a quick spoiler for that. There's a moment in which she has to pee, and there's a line in the women's bathroom, so she then goes in the men's bathroom, opens up the stall, and then her boyfriend is there making out with another guy. And this is half an hour into the film, and up until this point, I had just been like, hey, it's fine, it's out, whatever. I don't see why everybody likes this so much. As soon as they went in there, I'm like, oh!
But that was really...
Things are going to happen now. The story is about to change and become something different. That plot thread is dropped.
Yes.
She is just like, oh, you're gay? Well, I guess I can't date you anymore. Bye.
Yeah. It's like... And I had a feeling he was gonna be gay.
You called it too.
Yeah, it's like, that's because like...
I didn't see it at all. You're way better.
No, I think it's also because like I was in theater when I was in high school too, so it's like a lot of the guys at joint theater tend to be gay, and he had a lot of gay aspects to him.
I can kind of see it now, but...
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I figured. And another reason why I knew there was gonna be some sort of twist is because those two hooked up way too easily in the beginning. It's like...
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's like, oh, look at them, look at the stars, and picking out a star and naming him Bruce. It's like, this is going a little too well. I think something is going to happen.
I thought something was going to happen too, but I thought it was going to be like, I thought she was going to get pregnant from him, and then he was going to turn out to be like a complete asshole.
I thought she was going to end up pregnant from the other guy she ends up with.
There's so many hints that that's going to happen, and then it doesn't, and it's like, oh, well, again, that would have been way more interesting, but instead the interesting thing just didn't happen. Speaking of the other guy who she hooks up with, I think another reason why I just didn't really care for this film is that I just kept looking at a bunch of these characters like, go fuck yourself. Like, this film opens up and you immediately know the type of person that Lady Bird is because she said they're listening to Grapes of Wrath on cassettes. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a pretty unique, quirky, that identifies her. Okay, I'm a very interesting character. And then she just goes, God, I wish I could live through something And I was like, okay, I understand that feeling. When you're growing up, you're like, oh, everybody else lived through unique times. I wish that I could live in an interesting time. And then she says, you are living in interesting times. And then she goes, Mom, the only thing interesting about 2002 is that it's a palindrome. And I went, I'm sorry, this film takes place in 2002 and you're wishing you could live through something?
It's like, and the thing is, like...
Again... It's one of those things where a lot of teenagers don't think they're living through anything interesting until they're older and they look back and it's like, oh, those were interesting times. Motherfucker, there's a thing that happened 1 year before this that everyone knew. How the fuck do you not know this is interesting times? Again, I was her exact age at that time. I never thought, man, I wish I could live in interesting times after September 10th, 2001. Okay, after that point.
After September 11th, you mean? Or like...
After 10th would be the 11th.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
It's late.
Yes, we're doing this pretty late, so excuse us.
But yeah, it's like, man, again, I relate to that feeling. I did not relate to it after that date, because after that date, up until literally still going on today, I'm like, these are the most interesting fucking times imaginable.
Yeah, it's like...
Not for good reasons either.
No, it's not. And the thing is like, it's something they keep bringing up too, is like, her mom, like, she mentions that she knows her mom is worried about her going out to New York because of the terrorist attacks and everything, so...
Yeah, that came up, like, once in here.
Yeah, and it's like, it's, the whole 9/11 thing it was not, like, constantly beaten into our heads, but it was, like, mentioned here and there throughout the movie.
Like in the third act of this thing, it's now 2003.
Yeah.
And that's when the Iraq War was really heating up. And you see them, like, sitting there constantly watching news coverage of this, and, like, you even said, oh, God, I remember watching this exact footage. And I was like, yeah, this was during that time in which if there was a TV on in a room, it was on the news. So I was like, yeah. But again, it kind of makes me go back to, like, her. It's like, how fucking pretentious and snobbish are you that you don't think these are interesting times? But yeah, that's kind of, like, what another, like, small problem I had with this film is that, like, even though I could relate to these people... I knew they were assholes. Like, yeah, Lady Bird, I get that feeling. I understand it. I had that same feeling of, I want to get out of here. I want to go somewhere else. I want to go to New York. But she was such an ass in this entire film. Like and I hope that
the only person I sympathized with was Julie, her friend.
I was about to say. I wanted her to be the protagonist so bad.
It should have been her story.
It absolutely should have been her story. Like, there's a moment in which you see, like, she kind of has a crush on her teacher, but the teacher is, like, married to someone, and I was like, I have a weird feeling there's another story going on here that's way more interesting than what we're following. I mean, she has a teacher who, like, breaks down crying one day, and then he's not there anymore, which that's actually one of the good jokes in here, is that he's the theater teacher, and they replace him with the football coach.
Oh, yeah, that's
actually a good joke. I'll give him that one.
Like, I don't know, like, I know this is supposed to be, like, based off, like, actual, like, events, but, like, I don't know, like, I kind of felt like that maybe they exaggerated the football coach.
I do feel like... I think that was a good joke, but I still think they went a smidge too far.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, okay, so, but then there comes a moment which you see him, that teacher, like, at the hospital with his mom, and, like, with her mom.
Yeah, because her mom works at the hospital.
Yep, important piece of information. And you see them there at the hospital, and she's just going, well, do you have a support system for when this happens to you? And I was just like, for when what? What's the far more interesting thing happening to him that isn't happening to Lady Bird? Follow his story here. But yeah, it's like the people we're following are not the most interesting characters in this film. There are people who I feel like they're far more likable characters, and they're far more interesting characters. But again, some of the douchebags in here are good for, like, that, you know, for capturing that feeling. The entire point of this film is to capture that feeling of growing up. And the douchebag second boyfriend she gets in here, dear God, he is like, he could not have been more a cartoon if he was a character created for South Park. Because he really reminded me of, like, this is like how the South Park guys would make fun of this kind of character. Because he was like, oh good, you don't have a cell phone? That's how they track you. Eventually one day we're all gonna have chips in our heads one day. And I was like, fuck man, I was that guy in my school and even I didn't say dumb shit like that. Man. Yeah, he's like just the most like douchebaggy, like, oh, whatever. Kind of guy is like, oh my God. So yeah, but again, like, even though he was a complete piece of shit, like, at least he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
At least you were supposed to look at him like he was that.
Yeah, and like even like the popular girl, like even she was supposed.
Oh, you mean tiny Mila Kunis?
Yes, like she was supposed to be a bitch, but I felt like she was like a nicer person than Lady Bird.
Oh my god, I had the exact feeling. I thought the exact thing, because they set her up to be like the typical pretentious, like, I don't want to keep saying pretentious, but the typical like
snotty, popular.
That's the word I was looking for. The typical like snotty popular girl. And then like halfway through the film, like she like just reveals like, yeah, no, I'm not entirely like that. I wouldn't do any of that stuff. And I was like, oh, well then fuck Lady Bird a second time.
Yeah, it's like Lady Bird deliberately like drops Julie to be with the popular girl, and then it's
because she thinks that the popular girl will help her hook up with the douchebag guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, man, you just totally like dropped the only good friend you had in this entire film.
Yeah, seriously, like.
She was such a good character too,
Yeah.
Julie. So yeah, man. Also, this film, doesn't it feel like it has like more endings than Lord of the Rings? Like, doesn't it feel like it could have ended like 3 times in this thing?
I kind of felt like there were situations that ended, but like, you know, there were different situations going on, but they ended at different times.
Yeah, okay.
So, because that's kind of how life is, you know, that's like...
Yeah, it is, but again... But man, that comes full circle on this review.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes life ain't interesting enough to be a movie. And there's interesting things that happen in here towards the end.
Yeah.
Like, there's a moment in which you see, like, her packing up to move away to New York, and you see, like, the mom just constantly writing notes over and crinkling them up and throwing them away. And then at the end, when they're getting onto the airport, the dad secretly puts a little file of stuff into her luggage. And then when she gets to New York, she unpacks it, she finds the file, she opens up, it's all the crinkled up notebooks. Pieces of paper that the mom had written out, like all the messages that she wanted to send to her. And I was like, that's actually a beautiful spot to end. No, it keeps going. And then like the next scene, it's like her at a party, and then some guy goes, they're talking to Lady Bird, and they go, what's your name? She goes, Caitlin. And
no,
like,
it's Christy.
Christy, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that was the name her parents gave her.
Exactly. So I was like, oh, it's the name her parents get. She finally accepted the relationship with her parents. Okay, good. Keeps going.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Jesus, fuck, man, come on with this already. Yeah.
It's like, I saw it's like, oh, is this another boyfriend that she's gonna try and hook up with? Let's see how this fails. Oh, she throws up. Okay, never. Yeah, that's how she fucks it up.
Yeah. Yeah, but man. Again, I really do want to come in here and say, like, I'm not saying this is a bad film. I easily give this a high B+. Mm-hmm. I might even go A- on this thing.
I'd give it like a solid B.
Solid B? Okay. Wow, I didn't think I was going to be more positive on this, but okay, cool. But yeah, like, fuck, man, I can't say A-. I really can't. I'm giving it a solid B+. Because this is just a, it is a coming-of-age story, and it captures that feeling of being at that age in your life, at this time in the world, in this kind of situation, better than any film I have ever seen. But there is nothing in it that makes me say, oh, and you need to watch it because... And I'm like, yeah, it's like, it captures that feeling of the thing that everyone has felt. What's the new thing? What's the interesting thing in this? Yeah, there's really nothing in here that I can point at and be like, this is what makes it exceptional, other than the fact that the acting is really good. And it's able to capture that feeling, but it's a boring, average feeling. Yeah, it's... And man, it's not like I don't like coming-of-age stories. Like... It's not like I don't like relatable, real-world stories. Like I said... Great, I've forgotten the name of it.
Was it 13 or...
Not 13, The Big Sick.
Oh, yes.
The Big Sick also came out last year. Also true life story. Also a, like, coming to understand who you are as a person. Also actually happened to the person who wrote the story. So much more fascinating than this. And it's like, and also like better characters in there. I mean, the parents of the girl who's in the coma in The Big Sick. Oh my god, they were amazing characters. Yes. So good in there. And in here, it's like, wow, the mom is an amazing character. The dad, he's there. Good for the dad. Yeah. The dad did some stuff. Yay, go dad. I like the brother and his wife. I like them. There's one sequence in which the brother's wife is out smoking and shares a cigarette with Lady Bird, and basically she just goes, you need to be nicer to your mom. No, my mom hates me. Your mom does not hate you. Just like basically just her going, would you grow the fuck up already? So yeah, it's...
Like, we want to point out, like, isn't he, like, a stepbrother, or, like, did they adopt him?
It's never explained.
Yeah, because...
It's so weird that they never explain it, but again, it's like, yeah, man, if this was your family, you'd never stop to explain that. But yeah, because he's of a different race than they are, but they never explained that. But again, it's like, yeah, if this was your family, it would never be explained. So it's like, all right,
I guess so.
All right, fine. But again, it's because they're just trying to capture that feeling. And it's like, yeah, you did it, but... Man, an example that you pulled up was The Perks of Being a Wallflower from a couple years ago. Another coming-of-age story, and so much goddamn more interesting than this. Yeah, I'm not saying you have to have fucking Thor show up at the prom for this to be interesting. I'm not saying an alien invasion has to happen. I'm not saying all of a sudden a siren has to go off and suddenly Lady Bird is in Silent Hill. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying it's like, yeah, man, this is what life is like. For everyone. Mm-hmm. Enjoy. Man.
It's like someone...
You can literally throw a rock and find a coming-of-age story that's more interesting than this. But this is well made. I'll say that. The directing, the writing, it's well made. It's just not interesting.
It's like, hey, remember that time? Oh, yeah, I did.
And... I do remember that time. Wasn't that interesting?
It happened.
It happened. Yeah, but I mean, although I will say we're going into the Oscars with this, I really do hope that Laurie Metcalf wins. I've been saying for years Laurie Metcalf is one of the most underappreciated actresses out there. Holy cow, I'm glad she finally got a role where people like could show off what she could do, because I've seen her on Broadway. She is fucking phenomenal. And I mean, you go back and watch the old episodes of Roseanne, yeah, they were a comedy. Who gives a crap if it was a comedy? She acted her ass off on that show, like every single week. And people never really appreciate her for it. I am so glad she got a role where she's getting like an Oscar nomination, and I really hope she wins because she is fantastic in this. She nails like every single, like, I don't want to say backhanded like compliment because it's not that, but like that tone that your mom will take when she's trying to sound like concerned, but it sounds like
passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive, I guess, but like that dismissive tone, not even dismissive, but just kind of like the, like trying to sound concerned, but it comes off almost insulting. Like that kind of feeling that like a lot of people's like there's a moment which they're shopping for clothes and she's like, are you tired? No? Why? Oh, because I just saw you kicking your feet and dragging your feet, so I just figured you were tired. I'm like, Mom, if you don't want me to drag my feet, just tell me don't drag my feet. And it's like, I didn't want to say anything because I thought maybe you're tired. It's like, yeah, it's kind of that way of just pointing out a thing you're doing wrong, but trying to sound concerned about it at the same time. It's like, yeah, that's just something that moms do. It's fine. Although she has an amazing line in here that just put Lady Bird down in the best way. And when she was like, listen, your father just lost his job, so pick up your clothes and make sure that they're folded. You don't get them wrinkled because your coat and because the other students at your school might have parents who might want to hire him, but they're not going to do that if our family dresses like trash. And then she goes, did your mom always yell at you for not picking up your clothes? And was there ever a time when you wished that she hadn't yelled at you like that? And that's her exact line. I was just like, Jesus Christ. And then Laurie Metcalf just goes, my mom was an abusive alcoholic, and then just closes the door and I was like, like wanted to stand up and block and go, get in your fucking place, Lady Bird.
Like, quit bitching. Like like she just tells you to pick up your clothes.
Just pick up your fucking clothes.
It's not like she's telling you to, like, go fix the car or anything.
This is not me coming in here and being like, well, I'm older, so I'm shaking a finger at teenagers. It's like, man, even when I was a teenager, my parents told me to pick up my clothes.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a common thing.
Yeah, I might think in my head, it's like, pick up your clothes. Like, I might do that when their back was turned, but when they were there, I would go, okay, I would pick up the fucking clothes. That's what you do. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so, man, it's a film that captures what it's going for incredibly well, but man, I don't find what it's going for interesting in the slightest.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's it.
Okay.
Alright, so this was a piss poor start to our Oscar rundown, but let's be fucking honest. Shape of Water, Get Out, 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. We've already seen all the really fascinating Best Picture nominations. So this is kind of more of a contractual obligation at this point.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not seeing that fucking Bruce Willis film this weekend. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. Come back next time. Bye.